So, quite the parable we have today, right? Gotta love the parables of Jesus. Always fun. This one's called the parable of the weeds. And I love this story. It's a challenge to preach, but I do love it. Particularly the servants. I really gravitate to the servants in this story. You can kind of picture these servants in your mind, right? They walk the field one morning and they see weeds. They see weeds everywhere, tangled right in with the wheat. And then they come running to the farmer with, like we said, like the most reasonable question they could probably ask, right? Do you want us to go pull the weeds? I mean, yeah, that's what I would want. That's what you do with weeds. There's a lot of gardeners, I think, in this room, so ask any of them and they'll tell you that you probably want to pull the weeds. You probably want to pull the weeds early before they start to seed, right? That's what you do. So it's important to note that the servants in this story are not the villains. They're actually like the employees of the month. Okay, they see a problem, they report the problem, and they even offer to work overtime. But to this, the farmer says, no. Not be gentle with it or wait till Tuesday. Just no. Let them grow. Both of them, wheat and weeds, together until the harvest. Which, agriculturally speaking, is insane. One of my favorite theologians, Robert Capon, who wrote the book on the parables, admits that this is no way to run a farm. And then he points out something I never noticed before when reading this story. The weeds aren't hurting anything. You can read this story again. The wheat is fine. The wheat is growing. It's bearing fruit. It's doing great. Nobody's crop is in danger. The weeds aren't a threat. Sure, they're an offense. They're an eyesore, right? The field doesn't look the way a field is supposed to look, and the servants can't stand it. Now, before we get too comfortable, some of us grew up with the other version of this sermon, the rapture chart version. Anyone grew up with the rapture chart version of this story? Anyone read those Left Behind books back in the day? All right. The version where the whole point is figuring out who's wheat and who's weeds and making sure that you don't hang out with the wrong people, right? Maybe you've rolled your eyes at that whole thing. I know I have. But here's the thing about rolling your eyes at weed sorters. When you do that, when I do that, we're sorting weeds ourselves, right? It's unavoidable. We all keep a list. It might just have a brother-in-law on it. A politician, right? A church that does it wrong. Maybe a version of yourself from 20 years ago that you haven't forgiven yet. We walk our fields every morning, same as those servants, and something in us cannot rest until every single weed is pulled. I've heard this called the compulsion to closure. The compulsion to closure. The itch to get everything resolved, sorted, settled, so that life can finally start. Get the inbox to zero. Get the country fixed, whichever fix you're waiting for. Get your own contradictions ironed out so you can be one consistent person instead of a cacophony of contradictions you actually are. Then we tell ourselves, then I'll rest. And the parable has bad news about that plan. And it comes in one small detail. The enemy who sowed the weeds, he sows them at night. And then he leaves. He doesn't stick around to fight. He doesn't have to. Because his weeds can't do a thing to the wheat. See, his whole strategy is to get the servants to do his work for him. Get the good people so worked up about the bad seed that they tear up the field themselves in the name of protecting it. Every purge in history was run by people who were sure they were saving the wheat from the weeds. Every war, too, including the one running in the background this morning. These particular weeds in this story were called, I'm going to say this wrong, bearded darnel. Bearded darnel is what they would call it. But these weeds were this notorious wheat mimic of Palestinian agriculture. Until the heads form, they look just like wheat. You can't tell them apart. And by the time you notice them, their roots are wrapped around the wheat roots underground. If you pull one, you tear up the other. The servants can't safely separate them, and neither can we. Because the line between wheat and weed doesn't run between people, it runs through them. Through you, through me. Every one of us is a mixed field. And to be clear, this isn't about, staying in harm's way. Getting yourself or someone you love out of danger isn't weed pulling that we're warned against here, right? That's just what the daylight asks of you. This parable is about something else. It's about the verdict. Who's ultimately in, who's ultimately out, who deserves to exist. If God harvested people the way the servants wanted him to, pull everything with weeds in it, heaven would be empty by lunchtime today. And if we instituted that weed-pulling policy on earth, no one would be left standing. So we're stuck. We can't stop sorting, and we can't sort straight. We're at a dead end. There's a strange word in our passage today the farmer uses. Our Bibles translate it, let. Let both grow together. Now, not to Greek out on you or anything, but in the Greek, the word used is aphete. It's the same word that Jesus taught us to pray in the Lord's Prayer. Forgive. Forgive us our debts as we forgive our debtors. Same word. Let, release, forgive. The farmer's response to the enemy's sabotage isn't a jug of Roundup or a counterattack. It's forgiveness. A letting be spoken over the whole tangled field, weeds and all. Let it be. Paul McCartney? You guys want to sing? Anybody want to kick us off? Okay, never mind. And in case we thought that was just a nice sentiment from Jesus, just one of those little hippy-dippy, airy-fairy quips that gentle Jesus says all the time, in Jesus, God went and did it in public. On the cross, surrounded by the people pulling him up by the root, Jesus says it one more time. Father, forgive them. And when he rises, he keeps the scars in his hands, so nobody can ever accuse him of being wishy-washy or changing the policy. The field was never in danger. The kingdom grows, the parable says, while everyone sleeps. And the sleeping isn't a failure, it's not laziness. The servants all worked all day. They planted, they tended, they did everything the daylight asked of them. Amazing, well done, good and faithful servants. It's what human hearts and hands are designed for. Good, joyous work. And then night came. And the seed grew anyway. In the dark, off the clock, with no one watching. Some of you have worked that field for 50 years, 60 years, 70 years. The family, the church, the country. And that work was real. It was good, honest. Thanks be to God for you and your gifts. But the ultimate outcome was never riding on you. That part is always God's shift. You can sleep. Now about that fire that Jesus talks about, right? Yes, there's a fire at the end. and I won't dodge it. But look at what gets thrown in that fire. All causes of sin, the stumbling blocks, the tangles. If every one of us is a mixed field, then the fire isn't coming for you to take you out. It's coming for everything in you that was never you to begin with. The grudge, gone. The fear, gone. The sorter itself, finally, mercifully gone. That's not a threat to you. That's God finishing the weeding we were never qualified to start in the first place. The last thing the fire burns is a list we keep of 2 columns, wheat and weeds. Until then, we live in the tangle. The brother-in-law stays in the Christmas list, I know, even though you haven't figured him out yet. You keep showing up to the church that does some things wrong because, well, so do you. You look in the mirror at someone who's generous on Tuesday and petty by Thursday. And you stop waiting for that person to get consistent before you let them be loved. Because someone with scars on his hands and side has already said forgiven over the whole field. So the weeds don't get the last word, and neither do you nor I. Right now, the farmer looks at this field in this room, these particular weeds, and this particular wheat, all of it tangled together in us. And he doesn't reach for the sickle. He sets a table in the middle of the crop and invites you to supper. Bread and wine given for you. And he's not waiting for the sorted out version of you or the round up version of you, right? The you who finally got the weeds pulled in time. He offers it now for you, as is, tangled roots and all. Amen.